Hi, I'm Malcolm. Welcome to Placentia Bay. This is the Drake House.
Hello, I'm Ella. Welcome to the Drake House. Oh, so this is the porch. The house was built in 1890.
These are some old washing machines that Frank used. We have two here. And that is a older washing machine.
How often would they do the laundry?
Usually once a day. So instead of having multiple clothes we'd wear, it would be usually very little. They would have to change clothes. And so in here, this is an office we have renovated, but it used to be where they would store their food and water to. And so we have our book here, so people can sign it, so we can have more tours throughout the other years. And so this house came from Haystack, actually right here. It was resettled into Arnold's Cove, and Arnold's Cove is a resettlement community. And so a lot of houses here were resettled. And so this is the kitchen.
This is the kitchen. This is a picture of Frank Drake right there. The house was built in 1890. And so Frank stayed on Haystack for most of his life. The table was, this is the traditional setting for the table. This is, it had the serving plate, teacups, teapot.
It was Frank's grandfather who moved to Haystack, and later in 1969, when Frank finally decided to resettle from Haystack, he came to Arnold's Cove, and this is where the house was brought to. And later, when Frank died, the house was donated to Arnold's Cove to the Heritage Community. And so right here, this is a little end table we have here, some old keys they would have had to open up. And usually the table we have set here would always have been set to the table. Every meal it would have been set to show it proper, because it was everything was very proper back when Frank was younger. And so this stove right here, it's a coal and wood stove, but they would have usually used wood just because coal was very expensive, because that's where they would have had to buy it from the merchants that came in through the boats. So these are the coal here, and then the wood that would have been behind the stove. And so the bed over here, this is actually where Frank would have slept through at the end of his life, because it got really hard for him to go up the really small stairs we have in many of the small houses we have in Arnold's Cove. And so these floors right here, these are canvases. Actually, throughout a lot of old houses, like the salt box houses, this is actually what is called here. They would have had canvases throughout the floor instead of hardwood floor. And so this rug right here, rug was made by Alice Guy. That's Ray Guy's mother, and she made it when she was 98 years old. And she died when she was 102 years old.
Over here, this is moss that actually was used to insulate the house.
Where would they get that?
From like bogs and forests and like any near wildlife area and stuff. Down there are some jugs. They're from St. Pierre off the coast of Newfoundland. They were used to carry moonshine, rum, stuff like that. In here, this is the parlor, or the living room. All this furniture belonged to Frank, I believe, including this chandelier. This was brought over from England by merchants selling items at Haystack. Over here is a picture of young Frank as a little boy. It's kind of hard to see now, but these rugs are throughout the house. These were made by Frank Drake's mother. They're over 100 years old. This is the spinning wheel. This was used to make wool. They shear the sheep and then they turn it into wool that they could use for things like knitting and making clothes. Right there is a picture of Frank Drake's sister. in that exact same chair. She was 3 years old at the time.
And Pearl's daughter still lives in Arnold's Cove to this day. I think still some of her granddaughters come and visit the Drake house once in a while. And so many of these miniatures we have here are original to the house. This is what Frank would have used from when his family was in Haystack. And this is Frank's grandmother's sewing table. So instead of having an electric sewing machine, this is what they would have used.
So they were making their own clothes.
Yeah, they would have been making their own clothes. So instead of going down to the shopping store or H&M, they would have had to either make it or wait for the ships to come in and get clothes that way.
They were pretty self-sufficient.
Oh, very self-sufficient. So that's how a lot of them survived, was instead of having stuff depended on, they would have made it themselves or fixed it themselves.
In winter, how did they cope?
Winter, they usually only had one stove running throughout the winter season because it was really expensive to have multiple stoves running, even though there is a stove upstairs. And they also have bricks for when underneath the bed. I think that's upstairs. And so in this room over here, this is the artifact room. This is kind of like the indoor shed they would have used. And so we have a table of many artifacts here, donated from many families from Arnold's Cove and from Frank Drake's family.
Yeah, this is a saw that Frank Drake used. It was a two-man saw that they pull back and forth. This barrel here was actually used to keep cured meat, like pork and salted fish, that they would have for food and stuff during the wintertime.
Did they raise animals?
Oh yes, they would have had sheep, cows, and horses they would have raised. And usually for food sources, it would have mainly been fish they would have used. So many of the tools, let's say if your shoes broke, they would have actually fixed it using many of these shoe things all around the room we have here. And so these horns right here, that's actually what they would have used for hunting. That's how they would have called the mooses. And so right here we have an old crib they would have used. It would have been folded and put back into situations when the child grew up. And so down here we have some old scales to scale weighing yourself and for weighing food and such. And we have some pictures here for when people want to buy for a gift shop. And we have some Arnold's Cove books to learn more about our amazing community.
Alright, now it's time to go upstairs. Alright, this was Frank's room. He stayed here most of the time when he was a younger man. This is where he slept. This is his bed. Over here you can see some of his belongings, like his hat and his glasses and his old walking stick that he found and made from a tree branch. This is another one of the rugs that's over 100 years old. It's made by Frank Drake's mother. This was Frank Drake's chest that he kept most of his stuff in. He kept a lot of his belongings in there.
So right here, these are pipes. These were Frank's pipes. We learned that Frank never smoked from one of his friends. And so a lot of the books here would have been Bibles. And that's actually a lot of the younger kids would have learned how to read was from Bibles and religious text.
There are a lot of Bibles in the house.
A lot of Bibles.
They were reading the Bible as a way to comfort or as a way to learn?
It was a way to learn. It was also a way to have, like how today we have our phones and a lot of other things we do. Instead, they didn't have many things to do. Instead of going outside, they would have read their Bibles, and even before bed. So religious and Bibles were a really big thing. Instead of now, it's more like your grandfather and grandmother talks about it.
Yeah. Not many people have Bibles nowadays, but back then it was like a source of, I guess, entertainment and like also...
Like your way of life.
Yeah. Way of life and teachings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What about songs, hymns?
Oh, a lot. What is it, Newfoundland? What is it? History is all about music. It's a very vibrant history we have with art and everything it comes to with music. And so over here, in this corner right here, this is actually a heater. Instead of a wood stove they would have used this. So they would have used coals to turn it on and heat up. And so in here, this is the bathroom we have renovated, but it actually used to be the teacher's room they had when they needed a teacher in Haystack, and when Frank's father died, George, their mother let a teacher stay here. And so in this case here, these are many of their hygiene they would have used. And so over here, cod liver oil.
Cod liver oil, that was a common supplement for children back then. A lot of people took it just to get their vitamins and stuff and to be healthy. There's a shaving kit over there. That's a very old razor. And sunlight soap was very common back then for cleaning and stuff.
They would go to St. John's for them? Or?
Oh no, they would.
No, most of the time it'd be like, I think probably a couple times a week a merchant would come and sell them stuff. Nothing was really readily available to them, so they had to like wait for a boat to come in and give them stuff.
And they would bathe in here?
No, they wouldn't have bathed in the house. It would have usually been outside. And also right over there, that is what they would have used to scrub their clothes in if they didn't have the washing machine. So it would have been easier to go down near a river and wash their clothes that way. And so right here, this is a bucket. But it's actually what they would have used for their toilets when they couldn't go outside and use the porta potty. And the women would have usually used this one. And then once it would be done and used, it would have been chucked out the window.
This was actually originally where the teacher would stay on
Yeah.
Haystack. This room was redone to be a bathroom because you can't have outhouses nowadays. So it was redone for a bathroom. They would rent the rooms to teachers. I think $25 a month, was it?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, it was $25 a month for a teacher to stay up on Haystack. Yeah. So.
The ceilings are pretty high.
They are.
They are pretty high, yeah, for this house. A lot of the houses that I know are not really as high. Because they usually come up to probably about this tall. That's how tall my house is. And I think my house is close to like the size of the salt box house. And so this is Pearl and Frank's bedroom they would have shared as a child. And so usually people would have shared the bed together at night because it got really cold and they didn't have heaters. And so right here, this is actually a brick they would have used for underneath their feet. And they would have heated it up down near the stove and wrapped it up and put it underneath it to keep them warm. And so this straw right here, this is what was underneath the bed for cushion instead of a mattress. That's what they would have used. And so there's other rugs from Frank's mother around the house. And so in this case right here, we have Frank's christening gown he had and a baby's glass bottle. And we have some board games they would have used for their pastime, along with Pearl and Frank's jacket.
These rugs were part of their dowry?
Oh yeah, they would have been very used for underneath the floor and stuff, and along the walls and stuff, it would never been bare, so there would have always been pictures around the house. And so same with that picture over there, a lot of people come in and ask me if it's not supposed to be like that, if it's broke, because actually a lot of pictures back then were a lot like that, hanging like that.
Over here, these are some children's pictures. I'm not really sure who did them. I don't know if it was Frank.
I think it was Frank.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, these pictures were done by Frank. There's some old ornaments and stuff in there, like erasers and pencils and stuff for drawing and...
And this is the original furniture?
Yeah, this is the original desk. And there's a very old mirror there, too.
If one of the children was sick, what happened?
Usually they would have went out to their mother's or father's rooms to stay, and if the child was sick, then they would have been separated from the other child, and probably it would have been a bit colder that night for the child. Yeah. And so over here, this is where they would have usually stayed to read a book and look out the window and see the boats coming in. Another light would have, a light source here, for many of the houses here would have been kerosene lamps. And we have some more religious texts there and holy Bibles. We also have the old radio, that's what they would use to hear broadcasts come in and more news. And another rug.
This is the mother's bedroom. This is where Frank's mom stayed. Now, that bed in the last room, that bed was made out of straw. This bed, however, is much more comfortable and is made of feathers.
And it was more expensive.
Yeah, it was a lot more expensive, but this was the parents' bedroom, so they kind of had more to say.
The mother was at home and the father...
Oh yeah, the mother actually was, I think, 18 years younger than the father, so the father passed away, and so the mother was very responsible for a lot of the housekeepings until Frank came of age and was able to take care of many other things the young man would have had to. And so this is a stove they would have had, and it would have been barely running because of just how expensive it would have been to keep up with 2 stoves.
They were coming from where, the stoves?
Oh, the stoves would have been coming from the merchants. That would have probably brought them from England, all the way from the ships.
Over here, these are Frank's underwear and bathrobe there. This is what he would wear under his clothes and to bed when it was very cold. Down there, some of Frank's luggage that he wore, or that he had.
How many pairs of underwears would they have?
It's usually one between each person because it would have been very expensive to have and to keep up with in case one of them like ripped or tore.
Yeah. This is another chest that people would keep belongings in. These are slippers made out of straw that he wore.
Straw was very popular.
Oh, very
Was, yeah.
popular, easier to get.
Yeah. And this is the bathroom. That's what they used to go number 1 in.
Yeah, and this is, the one downstairs was a newer model, but this one was one of the older models they would have used. And now we're going downstairs to the sheds of Billyware and premises.
Hi, my name is Mary Brown. I'm the town clerk here for the town of Arnold's Cove. We're at the Drake House, and it's a very important part of the town. So it's been, I think the community's rallied around and supported it for the last 25 years almost now. So, and they've put a lot of work into the Heritage Foundation has, and every year they add something to it. So it's a lovely place for anyone to come visit and just learn about resettlement. There's so much here that you wouldn't even see anywhere else that you could see here. So what the ladies have done this year, this is the first time they've done this, is we've got a couple of local ladies. They've done some of their traditional knitting. So we've got our gun mitts here. These are our traditional gun mitts. So you'll, like, ones like this, let's see if they got the good ones here. Usually, or maybe these are just the traditional ones. Usually the gun mitts got 2 here like this, and then they're done like that. I don't know if she has any done this year, but I mean they're lovely, beautiful traditional gloves and mittens that they've got made, and socks and everything else all made locally. So that's a new addition to the Drake House this year. So they brought in some local wares and stuff for people to be able to purchase and support local community, and the Heritage Foundation, because percentage of costs go to the Heritage Foundation.
And this is open until
August. Last week of August is when the Drake House closes. So the museum is usually open for the July and August for people to come in. If they want to see it in any other time, they can just call, make an appointment with the town or through the Heritage Foundation. They can drop in and visit. So throughout the year, sometimes we'll have some people come in and we'll come out and we'll show them around it here too. So
when people come to Drake House, what should they expect?
to almost go back in time is what you should expect. I mean, the house is almost identical to when Frank Drake lived here, and I mean, when you walk through the house, there's a lot of most of his stuff is still here, his family stuff, and it's almost identical to what it would have been like if it was up on the islands. So this is what it would have been when they first came over and resettled in the 1960s. This is what most of the houses would have looked like that were resettled around the town of Arnold's Cove. Like if you were to go down on Tax Beach, a lot of like the biscuit box houses that are down there, these are a lot similar to what they would have looked like back then when they were first brought over. So Frank's house has been, it's almost like a moment in time where you can step back and just enjoy like that, what it was like. Simple life is what it was. And we have people that come back here every year that grew up with Frank and knew his family, and they'll come in and tell us stories. And so you get to learn a lot too, as like the students are working here in the summer every year. They've learned lots. Malcolm's been here for 4 years, and I'm sure they've heard lots of stories about the Drake House and about Frank. And over the years, a lot of like the senior community and stuff will come out for, like, we usually do tapings and tea, and they'll come out for that event, and that's always a lovely event to come out to at the Drake House. And then Quilt Day in the Cove is another one where people come out and people hang quilts, family quilts that have been in their families for generation after generation, and it's lovely to see as well too. So.
And now we're going down to Billy Ware's premises, back down this way, and the store and the shed. So right here we have a sign, the Drake House history, so if you want some more information about it. So this was written using Pearl's diary that she had and other information they would have used. And so we have some picnic tables, and we also got a new red chair this year, so we can get some pictures taken. Or if you want to enjoy the view we have, you can look down, sit next to the Drake House, and enjoy.
Well, this is my 4th year here now, so it's kind of almost feels like home, I guess you could say. I spend a lot of time here. It's not really like information overload on someone. If it's someone who's like older and they're from around here, then they're basically giving me a tour. They're telling me like all sorts of stuff from when they were like younger, or like the experiences they had with like some of the items inside the house. That's like I find that really meaningful, and like you get a lot from the experience more when like the people you're giving a tour to know more about stuff than what I know. So
Well, they've been here longer.
yeah.
Oh, yes. And so we're crossing the road right now. It's usually not busy, it's just the main road down to the sheds. This is the Billy Ware store and shed. So we have some information here about Billy Ware premises and the stage and stores and what they would have been used for. And so this is the store. This is what they would have used for when they brought the fishes in, and they would have stored many of their fishing supplies in here.
Fishing was one of the main occupations.
Oh yeah, like basically all my fishing was a huge part of these communities in Placentia Bay. That was their main source of income. It was their main source of food. It was what they did all day. Yeah, it was a whole economy of fishing and stuff.
We have, right now, this store is turned into where we come in and bring folks to show artifacts we have that were a part of the store.
What would they fish?
Been cod, salmon, lobsters, crabs, scallops.
This house would be enough to store everything?
Yeah, it would have been enough to store everything. And you also had the side house on the other side we'll get to later. And this is actually not the main one. This is actually a replica of what it used to look like in Haystack. And so this was built in 2001, I'm pretty sure.
Some old doors and some This is a old scale that they would use to weigh the fish. And however heavy the fish was, that would be how much it would be worth. Ella, do you know if we're allowed to go out here?
I think so. I think this one we're allowed to. The other one we're not supposed to.
Okay. This is like the balcony right there.
Okay, so this is actually where we'd come in and show. So we had this painted this year, the red stain. And so the tide is actually really low right now, so it actually comes up around supper time all the way in. Kind of see where the shore would start to from the water.
What is the population here?
The population I think is like 996, I think, around that. 1,000, yeah. And so right down here, this is the stage.
They like put.
Yeah, they would. This is where they would have dried the fish to for salt drying. So underneath here, that's where they would have had the fish put to, so flies or any bugs wouldn't have put maggot or anything onto. And so I think a few years ago, this was redone because it started to fall apart. And so a lot of these shapes doesn't really matter for what kind of use it would have been to. This would just been used to get the bugs off the fish. And this is the stage.
So it looks like you have redone a lot of the places.
The places, yeah. So this was just redone because we want to keep up the look of it. So we don't want anything to be run down, because when it's run down, then it's harder to maintain and for more people to want to come out and see the community. And so this stage, this is where they would have used to clean the fish and had their nets stored. And the other one, that's what they used for all their equipment would have been stored to. And so these signs right here, this is what they would have used throughout all the places they would have went to. They would have took the sign from there. And right here we have some information about the sheds from the Canadian government. And we have many nets and ropes. That's a main thing about fishing, where they would have used their nets and tying. And a lot of buoys. And we have the squid jigger in there. Many families still use that to catch squid to this day.
So people share this establishment.
Oh yeah, a lot of people and families share this establishment, and a lot of families have a lot of artifacts donated to the Heritage Foundation. So it's a lot of families from a lot of places from around the community has come in and helped support the Drake House.
What about the habitat here?
The habitat is usually summertime. We have a lot of foxes that come by. Foxes are a lot like raccoons and stuff. They come by and tear up the garbage, and you're not supposed to have your cats out because foxes will probably attack your cats.
And seagulls too.
And seagulls. And we have eagles.
Eagles and seagulls there. And yeah, like around here you gotta put like vinegar on your garbage bags so that seagulls don't come and get it and tear it open and stuff.
About this house, this museum, do you have a favorite exhibit that you like?
I really like the spinning wheel and stuff. I like how like they would shear the sheep and then take all the wool and like make it into like a fine like string that they could use and stuff. I find that really interesting.
The sheds are actually my favorite part of the exhibit, because not very many people want to come down after going through their houses, and you get to see the nice little tour. You get to come down, and at the very end, you get to just look out at where the saltfish would be too, and look out through the view. This is my favorite little view area. And now we're going back to the Drake house.
Alright, follow us.
So maybe you see like a boat coming in through the harbor. So usually when morning time you see a lot of boats coming through the harbor. So if there's not many things to do in the Drake house that day, we can watch the boats come in and we can show guests that the boats come in, because it's not very popular with other communities when their boats come in.
So also the town has invested in an app that actually, it's called Stories of Resettlement, and it's an app that will take you throughout town to all the different houses that were resettled from the islands, from the different islands like Marasheen and Tax Beach and Broad Cove and all those areas, and Spencer's Cove and Bordeaux and all different areas. And if you go download the app, it's on Google and it's on Apple, you can actually walk throughout town and listen to people that have resettled, like their families that resettled, and stories about each house as you're walking along the tour. And you can visit Arnold's Cove as if, it's almost like an Audible. You can download it and listen from home and listen to the stories from voices of the past that some of them aren't with us anymore, and they're lovely stories that you can download through the app.
I hope you enjoyed our tour of the Drake house.
And I hope you enjoyed the tour of the Drake house, and I hope you come and visit. And thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you.